Hello, my name is Sophie, and welcome to this 4-part series that I'm doing with Ohuhu, where I'm going to teach you guys how to start a bullet journal. In today's video, we're going to first talk about the stationery that you're going to need to start a bullet journal, and then we're going to talk about how to do calligraphy and do a very in-depth tutorial if you're a beginner to hand lettering. But first, the supplies. So, it is my firm belief that in order to start a bullet journal, you really only need a journal and just a random pen. This is a random ballpoint pen. And this journal is actually even a little fancy and bougie. It has like nice filigree on the front. My first journal that I ever had was this like $10 spiral notebook from Amazon. Very random journal that I used for 2020. So you really don't need all that much to start the concept of bullet journaling. However, if you, like me, are very artsy and you want to add fun color and designs into your spreads, there are some stationery pieces that I recommend just as like the basic beginner set that will help you be able to like follow tutorials online for other people who are bullet journaling and showing you inspiration, etc. So I did say that all you really need is like a random pen. However, this ballpoint pen, just like many others, is a gel pen. So whenever you write in a bullet journal, you don't want ink that's going to smear everywhere. You want ink that's going to be put down and stay, which is why I recommend felt-tipped fineliner pens for bullet journaling. And Ohuhu has this set of fine line drawing pens that I really recommend and really enjoy. So what's great about this set is that they are all felt-tipped pens, which means that they are not ballpoint pens and they will not smear once you put them down. You can write on them and then really rub your hand over it. There is zero smearing whatsoever. Also, this particular pack comes in a large variety of sizes. We have, I think, 8 pens here. Can I count? Yeah, 8 pens. And they range from something super small, like 0.05, which is like a tiny nib, to 1.0, which is a big, bold nib. And there's also a brush nib in here if you wanted to do some calligraphy with a brush pen. On the front, there is a diagram of all the different sizes. I will do a pen test for these, but just to kind of look at them up close. This is a 0.03, so one of my more commonly used sizes. Because it is a felt tip pen, it will not smear. If we look really closely at the nib here, if it'll focus, it is almost flat tipped. There is no like ink coming out of it like a gel pen would. It's literally just a felt tipped pen, and I'll be able to test all of these different sizes in the pen test that we do in just a few minutes. It really checks every box, I think, for me, and if you're a beginner to bullet journaling, this is a great way to just quickly stock up on a bunch of different sizes of pens without having to buy them individually and like worry if they're matching, etc. And then obviously, if you are like me, you like art, you like color. We want our spreads to be beautiful and colorful, because there's a difference in my opinion between a bullet journal and a planner. A planner is awesome and it's basically the exact same thing, but a bullet journal is like a planner plus that artistic level and that personalizable element to it. Now you can use all sorts of different things. You can use colored pencils, if you want to use crayons, if you wanted to use paint, if you wanted to use stationery like washi tape and stickers to add designs. Those are all great, but I think, at least in my experience, the most common used stationery tool is marker, and specifically water-based markers, because, and I've made a video about this with Ohuhu as well, alcohol markers are wonderful, but they will bleed through paper, so you have to use them with a certain technique in a bullet journal. However, water-based markers are great because they will not bleed through, and that's why most people like to use them in a bullet journal. So, Ohuhu has had water-based markers out for a while. I have their set of Ohuhu color markers. This is one of their markers. Will it focus, maybe? This is one of their markers. As you can see, it is dual-tipped. The nib is quite worn down. This is a marker that I've used quite frequently and definitely shows its use because it is not new. And also the fineliner end is very similar to the black fineliners and the colored ones. Now this has been out there for a while and I have, like I said, used these before, and I do enjoy these markers. However, they have recently perfected the art of water-based pens because they recently came out with this huge set of Pupe colored markers. So these are purposefully designed to go on paper, and they are better than these other water-based markers because, let me open the pack for you. Once again, they are dual tipped with a brush pen on one end and a fineliner on the other end. However, this one is great for multiple layers on paper. So I'll put a little image on here on the screen that is on Ohuhu's website. The water-based markers, whenever you layer them over and over and over, they are great markers, but it will kind of cause the paper to peel up a little bit. What's great about these new Pupe markers is that they are perfectly designed to have multiple layers and lots of going back and forth without worrying about bothering the actual texture of the paper itself or creating like holes in the paper, if that makes sense. So this package is portable and it's great because you can literally transport the markers in this exact box itself if you want to, the box that it comes in. In here we have a swatch set that they already give you, and then also one that you can do your own to test out the colors. As you can see by the swatch set, there's a very wide range of colors in here, nice mix of warm versus cool tones, and I always look at the neutrals because personally I love drawing people, so I like to have a variety of neutral beiges and browns for skin tones, etc. And there seems to be a couple of different brown options here, as well as some warmer and cooler grays, and there's also a colorless blender at the bottom. And then in the box itself, this little piece also folds out, so we have the rest of the markers stored behind here. but everything folds up nice and together, like I said, in one compact container that's easy for traveling. So these are like the elevated version of their original water-based markers, and I'm so excited because they sent me the whole pack of them, and I can see myself using this all the time in my own bullet journal because they really are just a high quality but not too expensive stationery marker that I think would be great for the bullet journaling world. So let's get into the pen test, and I want to show you guys the comparisons between these two types of markers and also the Ohuhu Fineliners. So first I want to go through and show you guys all the different sizes of the Fineliner pens. So let me just go through real quick and test all of these for you. The lighting is fluctuating in here, so I do apologize for that. But as you can see, as you go down the line, the line art gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And at the very bottom, we have a calligraphy nib. So that's why there is a lot of variation between the thin and thick here, because there is a brush nib in this pack as well. Let's talk about the other ones, aka these color markers. So in the pack, I'm going to pull out a brown that's hopefully kind of similar to the one that I have in the water-based marker. And I'll also pull out the orange that I was demonstrating with earlier. So first I want to demonstrate like how the marker actually works. So this is color 132. I love that they're all numbered. It makes it really easy to decide which one from like the swatch sheet is exactly the color that you want. I'm just going to do a one line swatch here, and then I will do the same up and down motion. So we have a thin fine liner as well on all of these pens. Now I want to compare these two browns, which I'm hoping are at least similar enough in color that they can be comparable. So I'm going to do like multiple layers down here of this pen versus the original color marker pen. So first this one, let me go over it once, and I'll go over it twice, and then I'll go over it like 10 times. All right, so there's my test there, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing with this brown. So let's just do one swatch. Well, the brown's a little bit purpley, but it's close enough. And then I'll do 2 lines, and then I'm gonna come down here and do like 10. You can kind of see if I turn the paper that there is some pilling of the paper itself, and it's like picking up. You see that little bits of the paper with the first brown, whereas the bottom one, there is zero pilling at all. All this pilling is from the top brown. So I want to, dust it off and get it out of the way. But basically the comparison between these two pens is that you can layer like a bajillion times with this pen rather than this pen, and it will not affect the paper itself. Whereas this one is definitely causing some textural issues and pilling of the paper. So now I want to talk to you guys about calligraphy, because calligraphy is a huge part of bullet journaling. Now you don't have to do calligraphy if you don't want to, but I feel like calligraphy and bullet journaling goes hand in hand because a lot of people like to use fancy brush lettering or lettering techniques to make their spreads pop. So I want to give you guys a basic calligraphy tutorial using one of the water-based markers from Ohuhu's newest collection. Again, we are struggling with lighting today, so please bear with me, but I wanted to do a calligraphy tutorial using this pretty purpley color. Whenever you're trying to do calligraphy, I would always look up inspiration pictures first of the type of calligraphy you're going for. And as you practice more, you'll kind of develop your style more and more. But no matter what style you do, there's always going to be a variation between the upstrokes and the downstrokes. So just to do a little demonstration here. First, for upstrokes, you're going to be going in a like upright motion, and we're going to just follow the lines on the page and go up like this. Now the upstrokes are usually very light and dainty, so try not to hold your pen too hard. Now for the downstrokes, we're going to go in the opposite direction, and we're going to go down like this, and this time press down a little bit whenever you are actually coming down to make that thickness, because the more you press down, the more the nib flattens on the page, and that's how you get that thicker line. Now to do a little bit of up and down like I'm doing over here, I'm just going to do the exact same thing but connect them, right? So I'm going to start with an upstroke that's very light and then downstroke that's thick. Up light, down thick, up light, down thick. And as you're watching it, you can kind of see how my hand physically pushes down on the paper more with the downstrokes to kind of get that difference in light versus down. I also recommend, as you can see, I'm holding it at an angle. I'm not going straight down with the pen onto the paper like this, because that is going to crush the actual nib against the paper. And because the nib is flexible and dainty, we want to be careful with it. So instead I'm kind of holding it at an angle whenever I'm doing these up and down motions to allow for the flexibility to just kind of like do its thing and not actually damage the nib. Now the next step with the calligraphy is to start doing letters. Now this is one that you're probably going to have to do some practice with. I do offer a calligraphy reference sheet on my website that you are free to download if you want to try practicing tracing letters and going light with the upstrokes and heavy on the downstrokes. strokes, but you can also just like look up inspiration pictures online, try to copy them as best as you can. Just do a couple letters down here. I will start with just the letter A. I'm gonna start with going up really light, then heavy on the downstroke. I'm going back up again, so I'll go light, 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 heavy on the downstroke, light again. And usually I like to add a little swoop at the end of my letters, sometimes add a little flourish. If I use light texture the entire time, it looks like this. If I use heavy texture the entire time, it looks like this. So I'm just kind of balancing somewhere in between these two whenever I'm doing these letters. To do a couple extra letters just to show you, I'm gonna do a little H because I feel like that has a good combination of upstrokes and then heavy down. Light upstroke, heavy down. And also I'm actually gonna bring the bottom of the H lower. That is just a stylistic choice. As you can see, this downstroke here ends on this line, and that might be like the dotted line that you're actually going to be writing on, for example. But I'd like to bring some of my letters down lower, completely stylistic. You can always do the exact same thing with your letter, but keep on the line. It just depends, you know, what kind of exaggerations you like to use. This is another instance where reference pictures are very helpful in just deciding what style is best and how you like to personalize the calligraphy to your own aesthetic. Now over here, I'm going to write the word marker in calligraphy because why not? I am using markers. And so as you can see, as I go through this, I'm just focusing on light upstrokes, heavy downstrokes, and also whereas cursive, for example, might be all continuous and you don't pick your marker up from the page. Whenever I do calligraphy, because I am focusing so much on upstrokes versus downstrokes and just the stylistic element of it, I do frequently pick my pen up from the page, and that is totally fine. Now, once you kind of have your style calligraphy down, that's whenever you can start adding really fun things like ombre or extra designs. So I'm going to write the word shadow in calligraphy. There we go. And now I'm going to show you guys what a drop shadow is, aka shadow. So I do this a lot. Basically, just imagine there is an exact copy of this exact word, just slightly pushed to the right and down. That's kind of a weird way to explain it. I will put a couple inspiration pictures here on the screen so you can see what I'm saying, but essentially I'm going to be drawing a shadow to the right and bottom of each letter. And I do this very like methodically in pieces. So I'm just actually going to use my fine tip and I'm going to go to the bottom and right of the top of the S. And then right whenever I see that I'm actually going to be touching the top of that part of the letter, this is very specific, then I will switch over here. And then I'm going to go on the right and then on the right, bottom, and then on the right. So basically every line, I'm just drawing a thinner, darker line to the bottom right of it, if that makes sense. And once again, inspiration pictures and practice are the key here. You can always do bottom left, top right, whatever. This is just one that makes sense for me. So as you can see, this is a little different than this one because it has a drop shadow to it. And I like that effect that it gives. Another thing that you can do is blending and adding ombre. So I'm just going to write the word ombre right here. Now ombre is like a gradient effect, and I always like to do this at first with two pens or two markers that are on the same like color wave, but this one is just darker, so it's a darker shade of this light purple. So what I'm going to do is just add this color right on top of the one that I already drew, but I'm only going to do it, for example, in the bottom section of every letter. Now you can do this wherever you want, in the middle, in the top, whatever, but in my mind I want the shadowy part or the darker part of each letter to be resting at the bottom, as if all the color like followed the path of gravity and went towards the bottom. So I'm just going to go right over the exact same letters with my darker color and just basically trace what's already there. And then I'm going to go back in with my first tone and just kind of blend it out by adding a little layer overlapping both the light and the darker tone. Now this is kind of acting as a mid-tone because water-based markers do layer, so the more you add on top of them, they do get slightly darker. As shown by over here, the more that I added, the darker each layer got, right? So if I'm adding another layer of the original color over the original color, it will be a darker shade, but it won't be as dark as the very bottom. So as you can see, now that I finished, I have a nice ombre between the light top and the bottom dark purple. Now that you've gotten to the end of this video, you should know the essentials for bullet journaling and like the basic supplies that I recommend, as well as how to do some calligraphy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below any questions that you have, and me or the Ohuhu team will be glad to answer all of your comments. If you want to follow me, my channel's name is Mingo Studio, and it will also be linked in the description box below. And make sure you subscribe to Ohuhu's channel as well, because we're going to be coming out with the rest of this video series very, very shortly. Sending you guys so much love. Have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next video.